Welcome to Immigration Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Home Secretary stops foreign students from bringing families to UK. Ministers may close loophole allowing people to self-identify on passports and driving licenses. Migrant crossings fall by third and boost for Sunak pledge to stop the boats. 2024 will be a year of reckoning, the weak West must adapt, or perish. Memes about animal resistance are everywhere, here's why you shouldn't laugh off rebellious orcas and sea otters too quickly. Home Secretary stops foreign students from bringing families to UK. The Independent. The UK government has implemented new visa restrictions that prevent international students from bringing family members to the country, except for those on postgraduate courses and certain scholarships. Home Secretary James cleverly said the move would reduce migration by tens of thousands, while Immigration Minister Tom Pursglove argued that it would tackle unsustainable levels of migration. However, critics have warned that the restrictions could harm UK universities' finances and reputation as an international destination. The move comes after a record high of 745,000 net migration figures were recorded last year. Ministers may close loophole allowing people to self-identify on passports and driving licenses. Telegraph. The UK government is considering closing a loophole that allows individuals to self-identify their gender on passports and driving licenses. Currently, individuals do not have to present a gender recognition certificate if they want to change the sex recorded on official government documents. Freedom of Information requests reveal that between 2018 and 2022, Passport Office approved over 3,000 requests for people to change their sex marker. Campaigners argue that this loophole creates a risk that single-sex spaces for women and girls could be compromised. Equalities Minister, Kemi Badenoch, wants to close the loophole but requires the support of other departments. Migrant crossings fall by third and boost for Sunak pledge to stop the boats. Telegraph. The number of migrants crossing the English Channel has fallen by 36% in the past year, according to Home Office figures. In 2023, 29,437 migrants reached the UK via the Channel, compared to 45,770 for the previous year. Although this is still the second highest annual total on record, it is seen as evidence that the £480 million, $661 million, agreement with France to target people smuggling gangs is working. The biggest fall was seen in the number of Albanians arriving, down 90%, due to a fast-track returns deal and increased raids on illegal workers. 2024 will be a year of reckoning, the weak West must adapt, or perish. Telegraph. The world is facing a growing crisis of democracy, with challenges to democratic systems and institutions greater than at any time since the end of the Cold War, according to an op-ed by Tom Tugendhat in The Telegraph. Tugendhat cites examples including the erosion of democracy in India under Narendra Modi, the sham elections in Belarus and Russia, and the corruption of the ANC in South Africa. He suggests that Western decline and China's rise have emboldened countries such as Russia, leading to the invasion of Ukraine. Tugendhat also highlights the growing instability in the Middle East, with a new oil crisis and global economic shock potentially on the horizon. These challenges are already having an impact on domestic politics, with incumbent governments across the West struggling to maintain power. Tugendhat argues that voters are increasingly exposed to the risks and consequences of global instability, resulting in a rise in populism and identity-based voting blocs. He concludes that politicians must take action to address these challenges and build a new, stronger democratic system. Memes about animal resistance are everywhere, here's why you shouldn't laugh off rebellious orcas and sea otters too quickly. Yahoo! Memes depicting orcas attacking boats, and a sea otter in Santa Cruz, California at large have flooded the internet. These memes depict the animals as revolutionaries, resisting human dominance and destruction of the natural world. According to Alexandra Isfahani-Hammond, a scholar of animal-human relations and social justice, the memes reflect the public's desire for social justice and a sustainable environment. Isfahani-Hammond points to the work of critical animal studies scholars, who argue that non-human animals can be political actors and engage in resistance. Animals' resistance is everywhere, from chickens pecking and scratching at workers in slaughterhouses to dolphins refusing to eat and holding their breath until death. Even when humans try to repress animals, they resist. Non-human animals regularly escape from captivity and fight back against their oppressors. Legal scholars argue that non-human animals should be granted personhood, and some animals are already appearing as plaintiffs in court cases. Isfahani-Hammond concludes that supporting non-human animals is consistent with democratic principles, defending the right to well-being and opposing the use of force against innocent subjects. The 5 issues and trends experts expect states to tackle in 2024. Yahoo! When state legislatures kick off their fresh sessions in the coming weeks, 37 will go into session in January and another 9 will follow in February. Lawmakers will immediately dive into a host of big policy issues. Some of those areas, like how to tackle artificial intelligence and deepfakes, will be relatively new. For others, like how state governments can best deal with major workforce shortages, legislators will be picking up where they left off last year. Meanwhile, in areas like abortion rights, it will be organizers attempting to place measures on the November ballot, not lawmakers, who are taking the lead. France creates Olympic consulate to deliver visas in time for Paris Games. RFI. France is set to introduce a digital visa system for participants in the 2024 Paris Olympics. The Olympic consulate will operate digitally, with applications submitted via the France Visas online platform. Instead of physical visas, participants will receive e-visas that will be stored on their official Olympic passes. The move is part of the European Union's plan to introduce a digital visa system throughout the Schengen zone by 2030. The EU argues that a digital system is more secure than traditional visas, as physical stickers can be copied and falsified. China to simplify visa applications for U.S. tourists. South China Morning Post. China will simplify the visa application process for U.S. tourists from January 1, 2023, removing the need for proof of a round-trip air ticket, hotel reservation, itinerary, or letter of invitation. The move is part of China's efforts to increase interactions between the two countries and attract more international visitors. It follows a 25% reduction in visa fees for U.S. applicants, which is in effect until December 31, 2024. China and the US also recently agreed to increase the number of direct flights between the two countries in early 2024. What to expect around the world in 2024? The Sydney Morning Herald. The year 2024 will see several significant elections taking place around the world, with implications for global politics and the major issues of our time. In North Asia, Taiwan's presidential election will be closely watched due to concerns over China's military intentions towards the island. In China, President Xi Jinping will face economic challenges and will seek to strengthen relationships with other countries. In Southeast Asia, the ASEAN-Australia Special Summit will bring regional leaders to Melbourne, and elections will take place in countries such as Indonesia, the Philippines, and Malaysia. In South Asia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India will hold elections, with the latter being the world's largest democratic ballot. In Europe, parliamentary elections in Ukraine and several other countries will take place, and the UK may see a change in government. In the Middle East, conflicts in Gaza and Yemen will continue, and Iran will hold parliamentary elections. In North America, the U.S. presidential election will dominate the news, and issues such as the economy, immigration, and foreign policy will be key. In South America, changes in political leadership and economic challenges will be watched closely. In Africa, the war in Sudan and the battle for key minerals will be significant. Finally, in Oceania, New Zealand's Conservative government will pursue policy changes in areas such as language, education, and energy. Au revoir, Sahel. Did 2023 crush France's influence in Africa? Al Jazeera. France's influence in Africa has significantly declined in 2023, as relations with its former colonies deteriorated. Last week, the French embassy in Niger announced it was ending diplomatic services in the country, and French troops boarded flights out of Niamey. This marked the final step in France's diminishing hold on its African allies. In August 2022, France withdrew its Operation Barkhane force from Mali, followed by a withdrawal from Burkina Faso in February 2023. Relations between France and Ouagadougou had soured since the coup that brought Captain Ibrahim Traoré to power. Burkina Faso has since announced partnerships with Russia, including progress on a nuclear power plant. In March, the Malian government suspended French media from operating in the country, and in July, a coup d'état forced out Niger's president Mohamed Bazoum. France's military-led governments in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have also announced their withdrawal from the joint force of G5 Sahel, a multinational military alliance. As France's influence in Africa continues to decline, the United States, Germany, and ECOWAS have signaled their willingness to work with the military governments. A message from Tara Mosley, concerns about fracking in state parks, Voice of the People. Yahoo! Akron City Councilwoman Tara L. Mosley wrote an open letter to the Akron Beacon Journal calling for women to be given leadership roles in the city. She advocated for a leadership approach prioritizing inclusivity, innovation, and collaboration, arguing that the city needs fresh and visionary leadership to guide it towards a prosperous future. Meanwhile, a public resistance campaign has been launched against plans for fracking in 3 Ohio state parks and wildlife areas. The campaign argues that the state's public lands should not be used for fossil fuel production. Hong Kongers shun silver screen to travel as Christmas box office takings slump. South China Morning Post. Box office takings in Hong Kong over the Christmas holiday have fallen to a 20-year low, with industry leaders attributing the decline to Hong Kongers prioritizing travel over cinema going. The Hong Kong Theatres Association and Hong Kong Motion Picture Industry Association reported that box office takings reached 19.6 million Hong Kong dollars, $2.5 million, from December 24 to 26, down 40% from the same period the previous year. Hong Kong made more than 1.32 million outbound trips over this period, exceeding pre-pandemic levels. Industry leaders also cited an unattractive movie lineup as a factor in the slump, noting that superhero movies have lost their appeal in recent years. The limited selection of movies available during the holiday period and a declining nighttime economy were also suggested as possible causes. The industry is hopeful for the Lunar New Year holiday but acknowledges that the limited movie selection may impact overall box office performance. The slump in box office takings is part of a longer-term trend in Hong Kong, with industry figures suggesting that people's movie-watching habits have changed after the pandemic, leading to a decline in cinema attendance. It's time to train our own doctors, and stop importing them. Telegraph. The UK government's cap on medical school places is preventing many British students with excellent academic records from becoming doctors, leading to a reliance on foreign-trained doctors, according to an op-ed in The Telegraph. The article argues that the government's policy of recruiting doctors from overseas is short-sighted and has negative consequences for both the UK's healthcare system and the countries from which the doctors are recruited. The policy is also costly, as foreign-trained doctors are more likely to face investigations for incompetence and be struck off, resulting in high negligence payouts. The best new books to read this January. The Independent. The article discusses 2 different books, Fighting Retreat, Churchill and India by Walter Reed and The 7 Wonders of the Ancient World by Bettany Hughes. The author mentions that the current Tory obsession with immigration is not new, as there were multiple discussions on colonial immigration during Churchill's time as Prime Minister. The article also criticizes Churchill for his racist views, including wanting to keep Britain white as the slogan for the Conservative Party. The article then briefly mentions Hughes' book, praising her chapter on the Hanging Gardens of Babylon and noting that paradise comes from the Persian word for a beautiful walled garden. Romanians, Bulgarians to fly, sail passport-free to EU from end March 2024. Yahoo! Citizens of Romania and Bulgaria will no longer require a passport to travel by air or sea to most EU countries, as well as Norway and Switzerland, from March 31, 2024. The decision extends the EU's passport-free travel zone, known as the Schengen area, to 25 of the 27 EU countries. However, passport checks will still be required for land border crossings, although talks are ongoing to lift these checks by 2024. Dear viewers, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the 6 Degrees world, here to bring you the latest news and analysis from around the globe. Today, we have a diverse range of stories to discuss, from visa restrictions in the UK to the decline of France's influence in Africa. So, let's dive in. In the UK, Home Secretary James Cleverly has implemented new visa restrictions that prevent international students from bringing their families to the country, with some exceptions. While the government argues that this move will reduce migration, critics warn of potential harm to UK universities' finances and reputation. It's a balancing act between migration control and maintaining the UK's position as an international destination for education. Speaking of visas, the UK government is considering closing a loophole that allows individuals to self-identify their gender on passports and driving licenses. While some argue that this change is necessary to protect single-sex spaces, others see it as a potential infringement on the rights of transgender individuals. The government needs support from other departments to push this change forward, so it remains to be seen how it will develop. In a boost for Chancellor Rishi Sunak's pledge to stop the boats, the number of migrants crossing the English Channel has fallen by 36% in the past year. This is seen as evidence that the UK's agreement with France to target people smuggling gangs is working. However, the overall number of crossings is still high, and the issue of illegal migration remains a significant challenge for the UK. Moving on to a broader perspective, an op-ed in The Telegraph argues that 2024 will be a year of reckoning for the weak West. The rise of populism, challenges to democratic systems, and global instability are all contributing to a growing crisis of democracy. Politicians must take action to address these challenges and build a new, stronger democratic system. It's a call to adapt or perish in the face of complex global issues. On a lighter note, memes about animal resistance have taken the internet by storm. Memes depicting animals as revolutionaries fighting against human dominance reflect a public desire for social justice and a sustainable environment. Animals' resistance is not to be underestimated, as they engage in various forms of protest and escape from captivity. Supporting non-human animals is consistent with democratic principles, defending their right to well-being and opposing the use of force against them. Looking ahead to 2024, we can expect significant elections and events around the world that will shape global politics. From Taiwan's presidential election to the US presidential election and conflicts in the Middle East, the coming year will be filled with important moments that will have implications for major issues of our time. In other news, France is set to introduce a digital visa system for participants in the 2024 Paris Olympics. This move aligns with the European Union's plan to introduce a digital visa system throughout the Schengen zone by 2030. The aim is to enhance security and prevent the falsification of physical visas. China is also making changes to its visa application process, simplifying it for US tourists. This move is part of China's efforts to increase interactions between the two countries and attract more international visitors. The reduction in visa fees and the increase in direct flights between China and the US further support this goal. Now, let's take a quick look at some other news. Akron City Councilwoman Tara L. Mosley is calling for women to be given leadership roles in the city, advocating for inclusivity and collaboration. Meanwhile, a public resistance campaign is underway against plans for fracking in Ohio state parks, arguing that public lands should not be used for fossil fuel production. In Hong Kong, box office takings over the Christmas holiday have hit a 20-year low, with Hong Kongers prioritizing travel over cinema going. The declining nighttime economy and an unattractive movie lineup are contributing factors to this slump. In the UK, an op-ed argues that the government's cap on medical school places is preventing British students from becoming doctors and creating a reliance on foreign-trained doctors. The article suggests that training more British doctors would be more beneficial for the UK's healthcare system and the countries from which doctors are recruited. Lastly, Romania and Bulgaria will soon be able to travel passport-free by air or sea to most EU countries, as well as Norway and Switzerland, from the end of March 2024. This decision extends the EU's passport-free travel zone, known as the Schengen area, to these countries, although passport checks will still be required for land border crossings. That's all for today's news. As always, I encourage you to share your thoughts and questions. What do you make of the UK's visa restrictions on international students? Do you think the decline of France's influence in Africa is significant? And how do you feel about the rise of animal resistance memes? Let's discuss. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the interconnected world of news. Yours in observation, Dr. Six. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.